Gene Hackman has 2 Academy Awards, 4 Golden Globes, and a past full of deeply upsetting events. These are the most tragic moments in the life of one of America's most celebrated actors. In 1994, Gene Hackman spoke to the Los Angeles Times about some childhood trauma that he was still trying to deal with. At the time, he was 63 years old and 62 films into his incredibly successful acting career, one that took off in spite of his notorious temper and tendency to argue with directors. That attitude, he said, was a rebelliousness that was deeply rooted in an unhappy childhood. Hackman grew up in a Great Depression-era town, raised by a father who hit him to discipline him, and a mother who struggled with alcoholism. Hackman's solution was to retreat to the basement. He recalled, "I would make up this little cardboard room that would be all contained and cozy." Still, the young Hackman tried to spend some quality time with his dad, and Saturday was their day to hang out. That was until the Saturday his father left. Hackman told the New York Times, "That day, he drove by and waved at me, and I knew from that wave that he wasn't coming back. That wave, it was like he was saying, 'Okay, it's all yours. You're on your own, kiddo.'" It would have been easier to get mad, but in a conversation with Larry King, Hackman shared that it impacted him differently. He recalled, "I don't think I was ever bitter. I loved him. I loved him right to the end." For Alan Hunter's biography, simply titled Gene Hackman, Hackman reflected on his life growing up after his father left the family. While he acknowledged the fact that they never went hungry, it still wasn't easy. He, his brother, and their mother lived with his grandmother in Danville, Illinois. Filled with frustration, he said that he needed to get out so badly that he enlisted in the Marines when he was just 16.
No, I just wanted to get out of town, really. Marine Corps happened to be the only place that would send me, you know.
In an interview with GQ, Hackman confirmed that when he and his mother would go to the movies together, she'd say how neat it would be to see him on the big screen. He reflected, "I would have been 10. Things parents say to children are oftentimes not heard, but in some cases you pick up on things that your parent would like to see you have done. Unfortunately, my mom never saw me act, so I'm sorry for that, but that's the way it is." Hackman's breakout role in Bonnie and Clyde came 5 years after his mother died in a tragic house fire. Details are scarce, and understandably, none come from Hackman himself. It seems, however, that she was killed after drinking too much and passing out while holding a lit cigarette. Hackman has said that if he could have shown her any of his films, it would have been "I Never Sang for My Father." When Gene Hackman's divorce from his first wife was finalized in 1986, they had been married for 30 years. At the time, he was filming Twice in a Lifetime, a movie about a man who gets bored with his home life and decides to upend it all in favor of his local bartender. As he stated himself, "It was a little painful for me to play that role, and although I thought I could use some of what I was going through at the time, it didn't really work out that way." When he spoke with the New York Times in 1989, Hackman acknowledged the impact his career had on his family, recognizing that it hadn't been good for anyone. As he put it, "You become very selfish as an actor. You spend so many years wanting desperately to be recognized as having the talent, and it's very tough to turn anything down. The temptations in that, the money and recognition, it was too much for the poor boy in me. I wasn't able to handle that." Hackman has also been candid about putting acting ahead of his children. When GQ asked him what advice he'd given his son, he replied honestly that he'd been gone so much that he didn't feel as though he could relate, sadly saying, "I lost touch with my son in terms of advice early on." Gene Hackman is famously hardworking, but he's also hinted that his work ethic has helped him avoid confronting the things that are the most painful in his life. One of those painful things was the 1982 death of his good friend Norman Gary. In an interview for American Film magazine shortly after Gary died by suicide, Hackman explained, "It wouldn't be good for me to lie about for the next year or so. For a number of reasons, I'm going to have to work hard. It's something I know how to do, and it's something I can rely on." Hackman has been typically close-lipped about the lasting impact that Gary's death has had on him, but a look at the aftermath of his passing makes it clear that it was a complicated, heartbreaking situation. Gary was an entertainment lawyer, and after he died, the New York Times reported there were accusations that some clients of Gary's firm had been involved in a massive embezzlement scheme. The rumors seemed so credible that the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office put together a whole task force to investigate, but nothing shady was found. Gene Hackman's last movie was 2004's poorly received Welcome to Mooseport, and 5 years later, he sat down for an interview with Empire. They wanted to know if the film's critical and commercial failure had anything to do with his retirement, but Hackman explained that there was actually a much sadder reason. He revealed, The straw that broke the camel's back was actually a stress test that I took in New York. The doctor advised me that my heart wasn't in the kind of shape that I should be putting it under any stress. That was a big adjustment, considering the types of roles that Hackman liked to take.
I'm always attracted to parts that are, that extend me, that make me stretch.
For Hackman, that diagnosis would likely have brought back memories from around 15 years prior. In 1990, Hackman had just finished filming Company Business and was vacationing in Oregon when he went to the hospital with chest pains. Before long, he was being rushed into surgery to repair a dangerously narrowing artery. Although the Los Angeles Times quoted his cardiologist as saying his patient was fine, there was a little more to it. Doctors had told Hackman's wife that if he hadn't gotten treatment when he did, he would have died, and in fact, he dodged death by just a few hours. So the actor slowed down, albeit reluctantly. When Reuters asked him in 2008 if he missed the entertainment business, he simply said, "Yes, I do. I miss the actual acting part of it, as it's what I did for almost 60 years, and I really loved that."